Hi, and welcome to Guru Grid. Well, today I really want to talk to you about the long-awaited Saturn-Moon conjunction video that I've been talking about for ages on TikTok, but I've had several hindrances to actually filming. So here we are, finally, at long last. This is my second time doing it, so I really hope this one goes through. Now, Saturn-Moon combinations, just like all things in astrology, I tend to lean towards whatever is a little bit more challenging or difficult. And this surely is one of the more difficult, if not the most difficult things that you can see in someone's birth chart. The reasons are very obvious, and I'm going to explain them to you. Let's begin with what the planets mean and some of the ways that this plays out and some of the manifestations that it can have. And I'm going to give some wonderful examples at the end of people's charts. We begin with the moon. Mental capacity can be seen from the moon. How we feel about daily things and ourselves can be seen from the moon. The moon associates with a person's mother and therefore their relationship with their mother. Another thing is the moon can have a lot to do with things that we do day to day because it rules our habits. It moves things around. It's a very shifty satellite. So things that can flow in and out of your life quite quickly. It circulates things in general. And it has a lot to do with nourishment and nurturing. Were you nurtured? Can you nurture yourself? Are you decent at nurturing others? Is that something that interests you? Now, moon is quite curious and very expansive. It flows. Saturn is the opposite of this. Saturn is very limited, restrictive, constrictive. He likes narrowness. He likes sureness. He likes investment and a return on his investment. So curiosity and this sort of go with the flow nature of the moon is just not his vibe. Saturn rules time, elders, wisdom, the execution, the enforcement of universal ethics. That's how I would put it. Like that train's never late. That lesson is always on time, for better or for worse. He just makes sure that we go through things, that we learn what we need to learn. He's quite efficient in this sense. Whether you enjoy it or not is completely irrelevant to him. It's all about being practical, a little bit acerbic, a little bit sour, dark sometimes. So naturally, when you get them together, you're going to have a limitation on one's nourishment. Perhaps a fear of being curious and trying new things, a fear of thinking big, can also give the native an experience of quite a bit of coldness. So let's say someone has this conjunction in their birth chart. The first thing that's probably worth addressing and usually quite common is that they have a very serious parental figure in their life. Okay, sign and house does have to be assessed, aspects, all these things. But let's just focus on this. Parents might have been strict. Mother might have been cold, disciplinarian, certainly authoritative. One thing I would like to mention though is sometimes they can have a very good relationship with their mother. And the reason that the mother was like this, like a very common example, it's like, let's say the mother grew up poor and then wanted her children to not suffer in their lifetime. So she was very harsh, that they did well in school, that they were financially literate, that they were practical, but that child just wanted to be a photographer, makeup artist, creative, and to the parent, they were like, no chance, you have to be an engineer, you have to be a pharmacist, and it sort of stripped them from this warm relationship, okay? The important thing to understand is you could have 4 or 5 siblings, but the Saturn moon child will feel that coldness. They will feel a burden of expectation and responsibility like nothing else. They really are mature and old before their time. Sometimes it's like a forced wisdom, sometimes they're born into it, it's a little bit organic, but it's always somehow earned. It's always somehow karmic, and it can feel very heavy on them. And it can really, the best way I could put it is as far as daydreaming goes, they can daydream to the extent that, they're disassociative sometimes because they need to escape, they're escapist. But really, it's a sense of disenchantment. They're disenchanted by life. Why? Because when they were growing up, they just needed someone to show them some kind of affection, like an emotional nourishment or nurturing. And when they didn't get it in the way that they needed it, and it's especially painful if they have siblings and they saw that their siblings were getting it. Like their siblings were getting the emotional, sustenance that they wanted and needed. But for whatever, it skipped over you as a child. It makes you feel betrayed or let down. And in very extreme cases, you can see a total abandonment and neglect from this placement. Now, as an adult, it can manifest in many ways. So when you're unaware and you have that placement, you're going through life, first thing you'll notice is you felt on some emotional level, even if your parents paid bills, put food on the table, whatever, you had to be your own greatest resource, because what you needed, that support, that love, friendship, congeniality, whatever, was not given to you. So you had to find a way to fill your own needs. So in the best possible way, I always feel like these people are stunning. They're stunning in the way that they can focus on something and get it. They're like this empty vessel that only achievement and great accomplishment can fill. There's some very good aspects to this, results that can be given from this combination. I'll get to that later. But so when they're quite young, they're, picking up a pine cone a nickel at their neighbor's yard. They're working at yard sales. They're babysitting. They're trying to become fiscally stable, emotionally stable. They don't like to rely on others because it doesn't feel safe to them. It doesn't feel safe to them. So even if on the outside they grew up in an emotionally stable household, they just know on some level something wasn't given to them, something's missing, and they have to go get it themselves. And they become very good at this. And there can be extreme manifestations of this. One of them is having no healthy sense of trust. I don't want to call it reliance or dependency, but they can become so hyper independent or so charmingly self-reliant that they can actually exist in states of denial. That they're like, well, I don't need a partner. They're just going to let me down. It's like, but don't you want to have someone nice to spend time with? Or they'll say, oh, I've just met the most perfect person, but it's only a matter of time before they disappoint me. I'm just going to leave, or they're going to leave me, or there's this idea that it's too good to be true or it can't work. So there needs to be some type of like simmering down. And usually it obviously comes once you've passed your Saturn return, you've lived a bit of life, you've tasted some of those, downfalls and handled them and gotten back up, and then you're okay. But it's important for these people to try new things. Like the moon does associate with habits, and Saturn likes everything to be predictable. The less risky, the better. So it would be helpful to them day to day to just walk a different route on their evening walk, try a different flavor coffee or different cafe or something to that effect, just to breathe some freshness into their daily lives. They have to be good at learning how to soothe themselves. They're usually people who were not soothed properly. Even if their parents love them, or their adoptive parents, or their foster parents, doesn't matter. They must learn to self-soothe. To be self-reliant in all the ways that are actually going to benefit you in your lifetime as you coexist with others. These people could probably exist completely on their own. Saturn likes solitude, he likes to be alone. So it does make a person, it can make them a critical thinker, very unique, or an individual, but it can also cause them to extremely self-isolate, to the extent where other people just bother them. They just don't want to be around them, or they find it draining to be in groups or something like that. But certainly they do, very well to be in positions of authority on their own. They do very, very well to be their own boss. So I'm going to go along and say, when I give these examples, you'll see why. What's really good about this? Well, you become practical from a very young age. You don't even need IKEA instructions. You can figure things out on your own. You can be really pragmatic. You can be self-sufficient, self-driven, self-motivated. Honestly, everything that's in a job description, in like the extra skills and abilities, these people fulfill like that. They can do it in their sleep. They can start a project, finish a project, whatever. They don't need you to give them direction. They'll just figure things out because they've always felt that they had to on some level. They can achieve incredible success. It's honestly stunning, because you just move through life knowing that you've got to do something. Something has to be done. It has to get done, and you depend on yourself to do it. So it just makes them like a laser. They just blast through any problem. They cut it out with like this amazing precision. Their work ethic is intense because, you know, Saturn does rule time and the moon is habitual. So if you pair these together, they can have this emotional endurance and stamina. They can persevere. They can be very tenacious and absolutely gritty, where, you know, they, like they say, you fall down 7 times, they get back up 8. They just keep coming back until they get what they need. So one thing that these people absolutely need, if you have this combination, is security. Usually, not always, but usually, it will begin with the craving of a physical security, okay? So material, financial safety, having a house that's been paid for, or a partner who makes enough money that you feel safe. If something happened to you, they could work. If something happened to them, you could support your life, you know, your joined life, all these things. So that's the first thing, to feel safe, to feel stable. Surprises are just not these people's friend. If you have this, you probably wouldn't even care for like happy romantic surprises. You know, you don't find sentiment in that. You find sentiment in sureness, surety, sure-footedness, and absolute knowing. Like certainty is your friend, because you somehow had the rug pulled out from under you when you were young. In some way, you were uprooted and you felt rootless. So the idea that it could come like a prank would probably really irritate them. Like, why would you do something at my expense? I was just walking and having a nice time. You threw a water balloon at me. Now I'm wet. I didn't expect that. And it shakes them to their core. They hate it. You know, if you're going to tell them a joke, they want to know that it's going to be funny, and they want to know that it's happening. So that's the first thing. Material security, safety, emotional stability. Learning to trust is a very important lesson. Trust in self and trust in life. This is the first step. Trust that you know you'll be okay. Life is always working out for you. Everything's always unfolding. Trust the world. And then you'll start to magnetize people that you can actually trust and manifest, you know, co-experiences, co-creations that are enjoyable to you and pleasurable to you without having that sort of suspicious track playing in the back of your mind always, like it's only a matter of time before they let me down, or I let myself down, or they can't be that nice, it's not possible, you know? So you have to learn to just relax. Disappointment is a part of life. Pain is a part of life. Suffering, as needless as it is a part of life, and we just accept it. We don't resist it. We don't run from it. Abandonment is a big theme with this. You know, you could see children, 4 or 5 siblings, 3 of them well turned out, 1 of them for some reason just neglected by their parents, maybe emotionally, maybe they didn't really care how their grades were at school or if they got the proper nutrition. So this abandonment can become very deep-rooted, and that person can abandon themselves, abandon their dreams. They can grow quite resentful that they didn't believe in themselves. They can become very frustrated that they didn't trust themselves, that they listened to other people's judgment. Maybe they listened to their mothers too much. They're like, hey, you told me my only job was school. I did everything right. I was always in school, and now my life didn't work out. It's like you abandoned your own instincts. You abandoned your dreams. And then you become resentful. It could be with the partner who's left you. You're like, I gave you 20 years of my life, and now you run off with whatever, you know, some hussy or some whatever, some hunk, the pool boy. And you're like, yeah, but I abandoned myself because I wasn't even enjoying that marriage. I just kind of hung on because they're very, very tenacious. So you have to learn to put faith in yourself. So feel secure, feel trusting. Those are very important themes. And then know that if anyone in this world can do anything, it's going to be these people, because they're just not, they've just seen or felt some of the deepest, darkest emotions available in the human experience. That they're just not that afraid of so many things, I feel. I feel like the stories they have to tell are sometimes even brutal or gruesome or just downright belong in a documentary. And you meet them and you think you're so jovial. I would never have guessed that you grew up this way, or that this happened to you, or that you even thought that about yourself. And they're like, yeah, it's so weird, isn't it? Like, yeah, just get over it. Just get over it. Just keep living. Just keep going. Just keep going. You persist. You move on. You move on. And they do. So let's begin with, Katy Perry is a really good example. She is a Moon Saturn person. I believe it's in Scorpio, where Saturn isn't happy and Moon is, debilitated. And so the first thing is, her parents, I think they were like radically religious. And of course her first single was like, I Kissed a Girl, and a little bit like racy. So there's like this theme with Saturn. You can also have it with like Saturn in the 9th house of like breaking free of beliefs of your authority figures, usually father or paternal. And I don't care if you like her or don't, you think she's attractive, can sing, can't act, can't act, whatever, irrelevant. The work ethic in these people is untouchable. Since that song came out, I don't know how, over 10 years ago, this person is relentless. They're always in the headlines, they're always releasing work, they're always doing something. They're always doing something. They will work till they die. They will just go forever, And what's interesting is you see that endurance. And actually, speaking of abandonment, she was married to Russell Brand. I believe she said in an interview, he texted her to let her know that they were getting divorced. I mean, that's like top tier, a turd move. I don't know what happens between people, but to be dumped over text in this day and age is like very, it's very topical, and I suppose it does happen a lot. But it's that experience attracted itself to such a person. That emotional abandonment happened, and on a public scale too. So that's very, very, that's very on par with a Saturn Moon individual. But they get over it. Another thing too is they can be late bloomers. So, they can like marry and have children, late 20s, mid 30s, something like that. They figure things out. They'll figure something out in their life a little bit later. Usually it's the personal stuff. Usually they'll get the career rolling, and then the personal stuff calms down late 20s after their first Saturn return, early 30s onwards. Now, the next example is the second most beautiful woman in the world, Sophia Loren, the first one being my mom, of course. Sophia Loren ticks almost every single box of a Saturn-Moon conjunction. It's fascinating. So her mother, it starts with her mother having experienced abandonment. So when her mother became pregnant with her, her father refused to marry her, which was like a huge, scandal. And so she had to support her and this child. So Sophia Loren's mother and grandmother, I think, converted their living room into like a salon for soldiers to come, drink. They were serving them drinks, food, whatever. 3 years later, this man comes back, gets her mother pregnant a second time, does not marry her, abandons them again. So the theme of abandonment, right from the off, while she was still in the womb, she was abandoned. And having to support herself as a young child. She was singing, entertaining, bussing tables. As a teenager, enrolled herself in a beauty pageant. And this is where she met her future husband, who was much older than her. I believe he was 20 plus years, something like that, older than her. And he saw potential in her. And this is the most Saturn Moon thing I ever read. And I read it when I was 13, a quote by Sophia Loren. It made me just fall in love with her, and I've never fallen out of love with her. How could anyone? She said, I'm lucky. I was born poor but wise. That's very Saturnian, actually. It's very, very on theme for her. Very on theme for that conjunction. And so they ended up, you could also attract an older partner with Saturn Moon because you're interested in stability, somebody who can guide you, somebody who's got your back, and somebody who's dealt with life. And also the themes of younger people, more often than not, would not entertain you. You wouldn't find them fascinating. Saturn Moon people like to build. So they usually will attract a partner who's really fiscally savvy or established or determined. They're determined on a DNA level, like on a cellular level. They're the human embodiment of like ambition and determination. So even if a partner is a little bit younger than them, that partner, just like them, is going to have this incredible focus and this incredible drive to just like be someone or do something or work together, pool your resources together and create a life, create a legacy, hopefully give your children a better chance than they had. So they got together, and it took them some time to get married and married again. There was some scandal with his divorce being recognized by the Catholic Church and all of this. And I mean, she just hit the ground running, started working, built an incredibly successful career. It's also, once these people are comfortable and they feel safe, they're loyal to the very end. To the very end. Sometimes they stick around for too long. It's a little bit Taurian, you know, like Tauruses will be loyal to a fault. Sometimes this combination can be like that. But in her case, it's quite sweet. When she was widowed, she was asked if she would ever remarry or consider it. And she said, never. It's not possible to feel love like that again, which is quite, you know, touching. It's very sentimental, it's very deep, it's very real, it's very Saturn with the moon. So she obviously achieved very great heights with this combination. So these people, when they focus and decide on success, it's never really mediocre. It's never lukewarm. It's top tier or just nothing. You know, they want it or they don't. That's it. There's no, maybe I want it today. I'll be happy if I just get half of it done. It's like, I'm gonna be a steel magnet or I'm not even gonna try. Like I'm gonna be the best or I'm not even gonna bother. So it's quite like that. Now, the queen of all queens, where this example is concerned, is someone who's like a grandmother to me. I've never met them, but I love them for many years. I love them now, even still. Louise Hay. Louise Hay ticks every single box, as far as I can tell, on a Saturn moon conjunction. She was born, her mother remarried shortly after, and her stepfathers were abusive to her and her mother. And she ran away from home at the age of 15. I think the same age Sophia Loren left to work as well, and ended up, you know, moving to New York at 17 to work as a model to support herself. So you see this theme of relying on oneself and not feeling it's safe at home, not feeling like one or both of your parents, you know, took care of you, defended you, stood up for you, advocated for you, or were just got you. They didn't get you. They didn't get your needs. She went on to marry, and her husband abandoned her. He left her for another woman in her 40s. And her life completely fell apart. And she said, this is a late bloomer thing. She said, my life didn't even begin to have meaning until I was in my mid-40s. Because she just said, she just hated herself. Now people can, with this placement, can really internalize the experiences that happen to them, and they can hold on to them for a very long time. So as powerful and as successful as it can make you, the flip side is that what hurts you can take seemingly ages to heal. Like really, really, really they need to reflect, be gentle with themselves, soothe, really self-soothe. Louise Hay in her work has even said that she went through periods where she hated herself so much she would look in the mirror and slap her own face in resentment. That's heavy. That's very Saturn moon. You know, she's spoken about abandoning herself from a very young age. She said, I felt no love at home. I didn't know what love was. So as a teenager, any boy who spoke a kind word to me, I would fall into bed with him because I wanted love so badly and I didn't know what it looked like. I didn't know how else to get it. She fell pregnant as a teenager, you know, delivered a child she put up for adoption. And so from sexual abuse to physical abuse to running away from home to not being protected, cared for, loved as a child, and then on as an adult, including self-abandonment. She's lived it all. And then we get to her starting her publishing company at like the age of 50, starting to get some ground at 55, and left this earth as a billionaire. She, you know, founded Hay House Publishing, Hay House Radio, Hay House. It's Louise Hay. So she's experienced every single low that this conjunction, that I don't wish on anybody. I don't wish one of them, let alone all of them, obviously, and has overcome all of them and has become profoundly spiritual and profoundly, astoundingly successful, and gone on to teach others by example and said, I was a nobody, I came from nowhere, I didn't even finish high school. I hated myself so much, I wish I wasn't alive many times. And I'm here to tell you, if I, who am an absolute nothing and no one that no one cared for, can sit here and be perfectly happy and do this work today, you can do it. Anybody can do it. So I feel like her legacy, and hers is no joke. Hers is Saturn with the moon in Scorpio in the 4th house. So Saturn in the 4th house alone is a little bit trying. Moon in Scorpio alone is a little bit trying. But to have that trifecta splat right there in the chart. And she overcame all of that. And she lived. She lived to turn it around. Like an alchemist, she purged, she turned it around, and she went on to create something that's standing the test of time today that we could all learn from, that no matter how bad something is, you can always get out of it. So I really hope that you enjoyed this video on Saturn moon combination. And if you have this and you've been through some dark times in your life, just know that the best is yet to come. And it's always better that way, to have something to look forward to. So only forward, keep moving forward, and thank you so much for watching. I wish you the best.